Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and with me is my favorite recurring guest, Dave White. Dave, how are you?
Hello, Scott. I'm fine. How are you?
You sound just full of energy today.
I am totally wound up for this one. I love this song. I absolutely love this song. It's really an important one.
Well, I remember when you were on the show the last time, you had mentioned that this was one that you really wanted to do. So, of course, I immediately put your name on it and said, well, we'll just do it then.
Well, thank you, kind sir. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Now, I have to say, this is January 4th. Happy New Year.
January 4th. Well, thank you. Same to you. Hope all is well in Las Vegas land.
Oh, yeah. We're recording this in the middle of December, so I will say we had a fantastic fireworks show. They brought it back. They haven't had it the last couple years.
It was awesome.
Yes, there you go. In the future, I will have had a wonderful time by the time that this episode airs.
There we go.
I love
that.
Time
Makes
travel.
total sense to me. In my frame of mind right now, that makes total sense.
Well, because in real time, you had a great gig this weekend and a little party after. So yeah, you're a little on the tired side.
A little bit wound up, a little bit tired. And I'm going 8 miles at 55 miles an hour. So we're just fine.
So basically you took a sleeping pill with a cup of coffee.
You got it.
Sounds good. Well, let's get right into this song because this is a fantastic song. It's a little bit longer. It's over 6 minutes. So we've got a lot of ground to cover. You ready to hit it, Dave?
I am. Do you know the story behind this song, Scott?
Well, we started talking about it after the show last time, but I don't think we've finished. So let's tell the audience.
All right. This song is in reference to a book called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. And Wounded Knee was an Indian reservation, I think, but with the Cherokees. And Bernie, obviously, Bernie's from Canada, and Phil and Mick, obviously from the UK, are writing and singing a song about something that happened in the American West, which I find totally amazing. What I find even more amazing is the lyrics are so poignant about this. I mean, they really hit it on the mark. What they wrote and the way that they wrote it, the words that they're using just absolutely fit the entire dialogue of the song fits the feeling you get when you hear it, if you know the story. Mm-hmm. So it's about the American cavalry, the army back in the 1800s, and what happened at Wounded Knee. But it's more than that. It's kind of political, kind of social, kind of American, kind of whatever that is. It's history. It's American history. And they wrote a song about American history, which I find totally interesting. And Bernie really nails it on this because he is so emotive during this. He has a quote, and I found it the other day. And he said, one of my favorite songs of all time from Heap's past and present is a song that Mick and Phil wrote called What Kind of God off the Wake the Sleeper album. And I could barely finish that song live without getting choked up. It has such an emotional story behind it. It's the story of, quote unquote, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, the American tragedy of how the Indians were mistreated and the Pride, which is the tribe, I believe is what I'm trying to say, of I think it was Cherokee. But wow, amazing lyrics. Mick and Phil really do write some beautiful songs together, and it's Heap through and through. I totally agree with that. So let's do it. Let's go analyze this one.
Sounds good. Well, and I have to say, having talked to Phil recently, mostly about Mistress of All Time, because I talked to him right after we had done that episode. And it's really amazing the depth of intelligence that go into some of these songs. I mean, as fans, we just kind of listen to the song on the surface. We might even memorize the words and not think so much about the deep meaning of them. But man, those guys do know how to write good songs, and covering each and every one of them, I see more and more how talented these guys really are.
Yeah. And on this one, his vocals are so upfront and so clear to understand the words. It's just an amazingly well sang tune.
Excellent. I'll make one more point before we get into the song. In a similar fashion, there's a song that Graham Bonnet, who was on the Down to Earth album from Rainbow, he's been the lead singer of Alcatraz. He's got the Graham Bonnet band. He wrote a song about his brother. And when they played it at the show I went to here in Vegas, he said at the beginning, he's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this, just to let you know. And you could see the tears streaming down his face while he's singing this really emotional song about his brother. And so that's the first thing that came to mind when you said that about Bernie playing the song live.
Yeah, you know what it's like to play live, and you're caught up in the moment. And, and it's really a moment that gets to you. It's hard to sometimes just carry on and get through it. Sometimes it makes it better, but sometimes it's really hard to do.
Yeah, it can make the performance better, but it doesn't make it better on the musician giving the performance.
Exactly. Until it's over.
Right, exactly. And you save those songs for the end of the set.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, let's give this song a go. Here it is. You know, this opening kind of feels almost optimistic.
Yes, it does. Considering what kind of song it is, yes, that's maybe why they did it that way.
Yeah, it's almost like, you're hoping that things are going to work out. You might know that you're heading for something difficult, but you're like, I feel good about this.
Can you hear the cadence of the drums, but it's not really drums yet?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's very, it's almost march-like. But
marching, yes.
Yeah, but it has a little bit softer of a feel to it than a march does, because there's a little bit more buzzing than just, da, 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 da.
But they'll grow in volume when they need to. It's really well put together that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very typical for Heep. They know how to construct that. Let's see what happens next.
I rode to my homeland and carried the memory over the valley below and the heart of a nation. The war cry was blazing, and the loss of my brothers and sons were all in the name of civilization.
You're absolutely right. His voice is crystal clear over the music. It's sitting right in the position it should be in for clarity. But I just realized, we were talking about the drums having that march feel. The guitars actually have that too.
Yes, the guitars are doing it. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Yeah, Bernie sounds very clear, but I also still get that kind of, he doesn't really know what's coming yet.
I think he's waiting to build it up for you, but he hasn't yet, and he's not so gritty yet. He'll get a little bit more heavy duty as the song goes on. Right now, this is like the prelude. This is like, guess what I'm going to sing about, and we're not there yet.
Right. I do love when he sings in this space, though, when he, because he has a natural grit to his voice. And when he sings this smoothly, it's kind of a treat.
And this is from the perspective of a person living in that tribe.
Mm-hmm.
The empty moon saw I was leaving with pride and hope in my heart. The mountains talk of faraway dreaming.
Yeah, see that line with pride and hope in my heart. The music really does support that feeling he's got right now.
Yes, yeah, and the drums are just starting to pick up on that marching cadence, and the organ got a little bit louder, a little bit dirtier. The song is building, and from this perspective, this person I think is just looking over this mountain pass or this valley pass, and saying, "This is where I live. This is what's going on in my life. There's a war. There's been a war. There's going to continue to be a war. And we're getting ready right now for Uriah Heep to go in there and explain the entire thing to us."
Right. And I kind of feel like, listening to him tell the story, I kind of feel like he sees, a couple guys on a hilltop. He's not too worried about it, but he's about to turn and see the army of 10,000 coming at him from behind.
Yep. Yep, you're right.
But on the drums, one thing that he added was the kick drum to this. It's not just the snare. The kick drum is a little bit more pronounced. So you've got those accents that push that march just a little bit more, along with the rising organ. Just give it that. Now it's starting to feel a little bit foreboding.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a good build. Wait a minute. There's something else going on here too. Is that Mick or Phil that's playing that long chord in the background?
Phil.
Is it? Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like it could be guitar, but the sustain on that is awfully long.
I think they're doing it together, but I think what we're hearing primarily is Phil on it.
Okay, I'll go with that.
The invasion, across from a faraway place into the new world, with guns and new order. They gave us religion, then took away all of our rights and forced us to live behind their new border.
I love the pitch direction of the vocals. Where they choose to go up, where they choose to go down. It's not what you would expect, but it really works for the song.
Doesn't he sound commanding in this?
Oh, very.
This is a really strong vocal from Bernie Shaw. He's really sounding in charge of this song.
That's a great word. Commanding is exactly what I would say for this.
Then there's this little synthesizers thing going on in there with a little bit of a and it's time to push you along, I think, along with the bass drum that you were talking about. And they use the word they. Mm-hmm. And we don't know what they're talking about yet, do we?
No.
Who is they?
And as we learned with Mistress of All Time, Phil is a great wordsmith. And
That's
there's
right.
a lot of subtleties in his wording that you really have to pay attention to pick up on.
Because if you look at the lyrics of this song, it's never explained who they is. Mm. You need to know the story. And when this came out, Scott, a lot of people didn't know what they were talking about because they're not from the States.
Oh, right. Yeah, right? I often wonder that. I often wonder, when we had in high school, we had our history classes. We had history, and then we had our American history, or what our version of American history is. And I often wondered what other countries study. I mean, obviously, we all study our own history, but what other countries do they study?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure the incident I'm not sure the incident at Wounded Knee is known overseas. Mm-hmm. And during the 70s, it became a bigger thing here than it was when I was growing up. When I was in college, Wounded Knee came out. The whole story of that, and if I remember correctly, it became big news for a while, and no one really knew about it until it came out in the news. And when this song came out, I kind of thought that's what they were talking about. And then I heard Bruni explain it to someone somewhere. And I went, I get it.
Right.
But it still blows me away that those guys, Bruni's a big follower of the American Indian history thing. And I think that's why they did this, but tremendous tune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that synth that you mentioned too, that ring, I noticed that is panning from ear to ear too.
Yep, it goes to on my stuff, it goes from left to right. Yeah, mm-hmm. So.
It makes it a little bit more surreal, doesn't it? When it moves around from ear to ear.
Yeah, it's not just a rock song; it's actually taking you somewhere along with the song because it's taking you to where it's going to go. And when it gets there, the verse changes to the chorus, which is really cool.
Up to this point, I feel more like it's a story being told with a musical background than a song.
Yeah. That's well put. Yeah.
But I do love the way that Bernie sounds when he harmonizes himself. I mean, it's just beautiful.
You think he uses a harmonizing machine? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think he's the kind of guy that would double track it.
I would think so too. I was just being coy.
You're not going to rope me in, buddy.
Sorry, tried.
Well played.
Thank you.
The four winds blow and bring a new vision where children laugh without fear. The land will speak, the people will listen.
Well, before we get into the next part, I just want to...
Did you hear that Hammond? Did you hear that? Oh, go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry.
No, it's absolutely gorgeous. And I've kind of missed that because we haven't had Hammond really as a front instrument except for a few songs here and there since Ken's time in the band. And I love that Phil's bringing that sound back because it's a beautiful sound.
Wake the Sleeper brought that back. That was part of their whole thing. They wanted to bring the Hammond wood back up front, and they did it with Wake the Sleeper.
And they've done a very good job with it. But in this particular case, leading up to where we're at now, there were some parts in there where I thought he was being exceptionally off key, just a touch to make it feel like something's not right.
Who was off key?
Phil.
That's kind of interesting because I was going to say something about that, but I figured it was just my ears.
No, I think he's doing it. I think he's just short of being on key, just enough to say in just one line each pass, something bad is here, something bad is coming.
All right, I'll take that. Yeah.
I was thinking that I might have just been imagining that, but since you picked up on it too, I'm gonna go with that being that it's really there and not my head.
We'll have to ask him someday if he did it on purpose.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having that conversation.
We'll have to schedule it and do it.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Listen. But yesterday my life was fading with every reason to die. 10 miles to the north as I rode my red horse in the dark.
You know, I love the bass through that chorus. It's very simple, but it hits some interesting pitches.
It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. This is one of the greatest songs I think that they've done outside of their big 5 albums in the beginning. This song is just insanely great. I love it.
Mm-hmm. I feel that way about a couple of songs. I'd have to say Mistress of All Time would be one of them. I'll have to think of the others. But yeah, I would agree. This is a very powerful song. And interestingly, in this chorus here, we've got the keyboards filling the left and the right side huge. They sound massive.
Yeah, they're massive.
But they're not in the center where Bernie is, so that you can actually hear him cut through that.
I know. This is just really well put together. And right now where we are is the homie to the song. And then when I saw the white soldiers, 100 or more in a line, the vision behind that, the imagery of that, think of that. Mm-hmm. That's someone looking out going, oh no, there they are, the white soldiers on there, and there are hundreds of them,
right?
You know, and the kill for the land, saying their law will stand. I mean, this is like bringing up all kinds of inferences and references to American history of this time frame.
Right, and because our battles were so often taking this hill, taking this whatever chunk of land it was that was referred to, it wasn't about defeating the enemy as much as it was about controlling that piece of land.
I'm not sure how many times they played this live, but I can imagine this would be tough to do.
Yeah.
Because he is so passionate about this. I mean, the way he's coming across.
Mm-hmm. I would think it would be a challenge from Phil's part, too, because he's got a couple different parts that he's playing, and to really get the power that you need to back the vocals on this song, you would really have to be focused on that main Hammond line.
Yeah, and in the beginning, when it was just the Hammond, just straight, I probably had I think it's called a chorale, which are really slow, Leslie. It's just kind of like just idling.
Mm-hmm.
That had its purpose too, because that's the quiet part. That's the part that's building. And when he went into this chorus here, outstanding. And the way he pulled that slide off and however they recorded this, however mics they used and the positioning, it's perfect. It's just perfect.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I have to say, I think he's probably playing the Nord by this point with maybe a Leslie simulator.
I don't think they do that in the studio. He'll use that for synth stuff, but I don't think with organ tracks he won't play without a Hammond, especially on this album. Yeah,
because he had mentioned that he had a Nord, but maybe that was just for the tour.
He does. He uses it live and he uses it for all kinds of things. I don't think when they record an album, though, he doesn't have a Hammond. He calls it the Beast, and I think he loves it. And I think that's what we're hearing here.
Oh, that would make sense. I mean, you'd want that quality on the album, but you don't want to be dragging that thing around with you if you don't have to.
That's the point. Yep.
Well, I guess his roadies, which doesn't want his roadies doing it.
Yeah. 400 pounds for this and 400 pounds for that. Yep.
Yeah, I did a show where we had, it was a small stage. It was a Rush festival gig, so you only had 15 minutes to change over bands. And we had somebody show up with a full B3 with 2 Leslies, and I'm like, that's staying to the side of the stage. We are not lifting that up in here in 15 minutes.
They sound so great, but they're such a pain for the people that have to deal with them, but they're so worth it.
Yeah, and the sets were only 25 minutes long, so to drag all that stuff out there for 25 minutes, that's just insane.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen it done too. Yeah, I know a guy that puts a Leslie and the Hammond in his car, and somehow he makes it fit.
I hope he has a lot of reinforcement in his
I don't know.
suspension.
Something goes in the backseat. Leslie goes in the trunk, but I mean, he's got this whole kit worked out. He does it in about 10 minutes.
Wow, that's impressive. Well, count me out of doing that.
Me too.
Here we go.
Fighting is over. No matter what fear they might bring, my country will live. The dust clouds are falling. I stood by the river and breathing the air that is life within the Black Hills. My spiritual calling.
Oh, I love that transition there into the heavier part. Yeah, that's great. I love going to the snare drum on that. The drums sound fantastic on this song.
Yeah, I know. I believe Mike Paxton did the producing on this, and great sound. This is the battle's over now. The massacre at Wounded Knee is over now in this verse, and he's looking back.
Yeah,
and
the imagery is so powerful.
It is, and I don't know how they can do that, because I mean, how they wrote these. I wonder if Bernie helped them write the lyrics.
Could be. He wasn't credited, but that doesn't mean anything. I
know, but I wonder if he had some input, because I just think that the words, the way that they're written, the lyrics are written, it just sounds like, you're looking at this third person. You're looking at this from someone else's point of view. It's not about guys and girls and love and all that stuff. This is a story, and this is a history incident. But the way that's, I can put this in perspective. The words that they're using are the kind of words that I think someone would think, but it has to be a certain kind of, what you've gone through is what you're saying, is why you're using the words that you're using.
Right.
You had to be there, but they weren't there. I think it's fantastic the way they pulled this off.
Well, I think that's the brilliance of music and writing in general, is that you can create a story just from an idea in your mind, whether it's something you ever experienced or not. And you can kind of put yourself in those person's shoes, go through that whole process of what that must have been like to the extent you can imagine it, and then be able to tell that story as if you had experienced it, because in your mind you have.
Yeah. Phil's talented that way. He writes. He writes, and he does poetry, and he does stories, and he's just great with lyrics.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah, just a master of the craft, and everything's so visual.
Visual is the whole thing. And Phil's like that. He's just the master at doing this kind of thing.
Right. But I'm picturing, Bernie in like a grayish uniform, just covered in dirt and blood and bruises, and just standing there with his eyes closed, breathing in the air by the river. It's so visual that my mind immediately goes to that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Scott.
Very powerful. Well, let's see where it goes from here. Okay, wait a minute. That was crazy.
Was that something?
That's the strangest build I've ever heard. It made me feel like no, things aren't going to be okay.
Started to grow and lost a step and came back and missed another step and came back. It's like somebody's trying to fight going up the stairs.
Yeah.
That's what I was seeing. Somebody stumbling their way up to something. Yeah.
What a bizarre progression, but I love it.
Isn't that great?
That's amazing. Yeah. Damn, that feels good.
I know.
See, what kind of God can this be?
That was a really cool part right there. But I love Bernie's vocals on that first section we just listened to. I mean, you feel so deep the emotion he's singing with. It's so powerful.
That line, what kind of God do they see, when they're that far into the song? It's saying there 100 more on the line, kill for the land, saying their law will stand. What kind of God do they see? I would think in my head that the next line could have been, what kind of people can these be? Like in sheer exclamation, disgust. What kind of people can these possibly be? Mm-hmm. But that line isn't there. But that's what you think. There's like a dualism there.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great way to put it. I think too that it's interesting when I think about there was a line in Saving Private Ryan that said something like, "If God could be for us, who could be against us?" And I thought it's such an interesting concept when you think about people saying, I hope that God helps us pass this math test, or helps my team win this game, or all these things. And I'm like, well, if everybody's God's children, though, God wouldn't be playing sides.
Right. Right.
But then to the further extent of that, yes, what kind of people could just come in and say, we're going to slaughter you and take your land because we can?
It's obviously looking at it from their viewpoint. It's kind of like, they're saying, what kind of God do they see? Number one, because it's not our God. And number two, geez, what kind of people can these people be? And that's what I'm getting out of this. They're astonished at, they're amazed at how screwed up this is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this is just one case out of so many that are just like this over history.
Yes.
And I remember thinking too, during World War II, I wasn't around during World War II, but thinking about World War II, how could the German soldiers just start slaughtering hundreds of thousands of human beings? And you got to think there's so much programming of the soldiers that goes on into this, where they think what they're doing is the right thing and they don't question it.
Each side does. Well, I can't say that. Each side does eventually. Mm-hmm. But, that's a whole different podcast. You and I can do this for hours.
But just thinking in terms of the importance of those lines in the song.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is it's a desperate thought almost.
Everyone thinks they're on the right side because they're fighting for the right things, but that's relative to who you are.
Exactly.
That's like anything in life. You do what you do because you think it's right.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to have to go back at some point and count that first drum fill, because the first drum fill after the break really sounded like it was completely off time.
Didn't
worked,
it though? I mean, yeah. Maybe that wasn't intended. Maybe it just came out that way and they didn't fix it because it was off.
Yeah, I thought so. Like, it was off of the count, and I thought it was a great fill, but I'm like, it's in a weird place.
I think I saw them do this when I was in Germany once. I think, and I remember, maybe not. No. Never mind. Never mind. Wrong gig.
We're getting old, Dave.
Yeah, I know. Wrong gig.
Right before our eyes.
Yeah, but nobody can see me. They can just hear me.
That's right. Yeah, they can't see me turning to dust in the corner.
That's right.
I'm good with it. All right, here we go. Okay, I can interrupt this as this isn't officially a solo, because the one rule we have on this show is that you do not interrupt a Mick Box solo.
That's correct.
But it's not a solo, so I can interrupt him here. Do you hear those screams from Bernie in the background?
Yeah, they're
gorgeous.
They're almost. I'd say they're 83% echo. They're just, you know what I mean? You can't really hear them, but you can hear them.
Right.
They're just like really reverbed out, echoed out. Yeah, reverb. They're 83% reverb.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You hear just kind of the attack of what he's doing, but not the full body of it. That's just carried in a wash into the song. I love the part we're hearing here. It's kind of, it's intriguing because it's not giving you a direction. It's just kind of like, here's a bed for you to listen to, but we're not going to give you anything specific. We're not going to give you a solo over this. We're just going to make this pure gut-wrenching emotion.
You know, and I think you hit it right on the head here, because with this section of the song, I was trying to figure out when they did it. I was trying to figure out what they're trying to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just the utter frustration of what the song is trying to portray without any real semblance of direction. I mean, I don't know if I put that correctly. It's a great part of it's a great part of the song, but it's not really specific. It's just carrying on with, I think, you know, I mean, what kind of God do they see? I mean, what the frustration, the astonishment of all this, but it's not really saying anything. It's just grabbing the emotion and going with it.
Right. I'm kind of picturing, again, you know, I'm a visual person. I'm kind of picturing, you know, after we saw Bernie in his uniform at the lake, breathing in the air, I just kind of feel like he had his moment where he's like, all right, we're going to have to deal with this. This is the way that it is. And then that moment of, I can't accept what just happened to me, and just running through the woods, screaming at the top of his lungs, just not admitting that any of this is true.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Right on.
Because normally, I mean, if this were just a straightforward song, Mick would be doing a solo here.
I think you got it. It's just sheer emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, very powerfully done.
And it doesn't get any more intense as this goes on because there is no solo. Mm-hmm. It's just solid emotion for the next, minute and a half?
Right.
Minute.
And the audio, I mean, looking at the waveform, it's brick wall limited. I mean, it is full from ear to ear. Yeah. And I think, you know, I'm not a fan of brick wall limiting, but in this case, I think this is the perfect reason why you would do it, because the sound is just huge in both of my ears. It's overwhelming almost.
I listened to this last night 3 or 4 times, and you know, the second half of the song is just so intense, and this part right here is one of the more intense things I think I've ever heard them do in terms of sheer power. You know, they're a powerful band, but this is really powerful.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I absolutely agree with that. There's been a lot of emotion in their songs over the years, but this is emotion on top of frustration, on top of fear.
it was different. This was about anger. This was about anger and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things just swirled together. And I mean, I've never had to go to war. I've been in fights, but I've never had to go to war. And I can't imagine the different levels of emotion that you feel in a minute, let alone throughout the course of your entire tour.
I would encourage anybody listening to this podcast, go up and find the lyrics to the song and then listen to it again and read the words, because then the music really makes sense.
Well, even better, I'll put them in the show notes.
Put them in the show notes.
There you go.
All right.
I seriously thought you were going to say, I encourage anyone listening to go to war. I was going to say, Dave.
No, sir.
We have enough people doing that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's get back to it.
All right.
Jeez, what a powerful ending.
Doesn't get much better than that, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, that it made you feel like he died, like he just, like a bomb went off and he died.
Bombs in the distance, maybe. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. Yeah. I mean, you get let down when it's over. It's so intense. You just go, whew, it's done. It's done. What a tune. What a tune. You know?
I don't think there's a way you could come out of that, an emotional part like that without, there's no way you couldn't let people down. I mean, if you faded it out, it would have felt like it just faded into oblivion and it went on forever. If you just end it like they did here, you feel empty all of a sudden. And that's a powerful tool right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't put it better than that.
I mean, this is going to sound like a strange comparison, and I know it's nowhere near the same, but as close as I can think off the top of my head for an intense ending like this would probably be July Morning.
Yeah. On the live version of Circle of Hands off Live 73,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably my favorite recording they ever did, that was recorded that way. That's got a tremendous ending too. The build up and then the ending. This is like right there also.
Yeah.
This is right there.
Yeah, and Circle of Hands, if they had gone a different direction lyrically, the music could have easily ended up like this. Circle of Hands was really more of a happier song, but had it gone dark, I could have seen them doing something like this and that as well.
Me too. Yeah. Me too.
There was, I was trying to think, I don't know what the particular patch is, and I'm trying to think, Sweet Lorraine. So think of the keyboard sound that Ken had on Sweet Lorraine. If they had added that to double Bernie's vocal, that's about the only thing I think would have made the ending more powerful.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so intense as it is. I mean, first of all, you don't hear Bernie scream like that very often.
Just in July Morning, he hits that note,
Mm-hmm.
and we have those really high falsettos. He's probably 2 octaves up.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing.
I mean, he can do it, but it's not something he doesn't overuse that by any means.
No, he doesn't.
So when he does pull that trick out of the bag, it's powerful.
You ever seen him do it?
I have not seen him do it.
My wife and I sat front row center twice in a row, 2 nights in a row, and he did July Morning, hit that big note, the note,
Mm-hmm.
and she seriously started to cry. It was so emotional, and he just does it. He just nails it. He's perfectly on pitch.
Mm-hmm.
He's got all the breath he needs. He's something else.
And it's really kind of out of nowhere because it's not like you do a build that leads up to that note. It's just all of a sudden it's there.
I know.
That's an amazing trick for a singer to pull off, is to just hit a high note out of nowhere like that. To me, I used to sing a little bit, and I would not have been able to do that by any means.
I think these guys are my favorite band. What do you think?
I'm a fan. I've won me over.
I think some of the stuff that they do is so outrageously great. I can't wait for the next album to come out. It's just
me too.
Too much.
I'm just even dying to hear the title, to hear what they come up with for a title, because I think that it's going to tell me nothing, but it's just going to make me think even harder what the songs are going to be like.
Well, we won't know. We won't know until we know.
Yeah.
Until someone tells us, right?
Yeah. And the last that I heard, of course, now this is middle of December, but there is still no release date as of this time that we're recording. The album is still being mixed and mastered. That's going to take some time. But but you got to figure, I mean, the record company has to set up all the promotion, all the advertisements. They got to get enough physical product made to be shipped on release date so that everybody can have it. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And as much as I want to say, the album's done, let's have it, you can't. It just doesn't work that way.
I'd be surprised if it's not out by the end of May.
Yeah, I could live with that.
Because there's a tremendous amount of work, packaging and everything else. And Mick hasn't let on at all. I talk to him a couple of times a week, just like emails and stuff. And he's never said a word. So, which means that they're not far enough along for anybody to get really crazy about it yet, but they know it's coming. They're probably listening to mixes, They're probably getting emailed mixes and all that stuff. They're on the phone with each other and with the engineers and the producer and stuff. And yeah, they're getting there.
Yeah, it'll happen. We just have to be patient. Being impatient isn't going to help it happen any faster. But and we've got plenty to listen to in the meantime.
And thanks to you, I am impatient to tell you this. You have completed, and I needed to congratulate you on over 200 episodes now.
Thank you.
This is fantastic. This has been a great addition. This is just fantastic.
I just needed a wider excuse for why I want to sit more in a chair.
You just needed more stuff to do.
Exactly.
So what are you now? 210 episodes?
I can tell you exactly what episode this will be.
I've heard so many nice comments about this stuff. It's great.
Thank you. That's good to hear. This is episode... because some I split into multiple episodes, so I have to actually account for that. This is episode 237, or song review 237.
Well, congratulations from all of us to all of you, because that's an amazing accomplishment and a hell of a lot of work, and you do a really good job at it, Scott.
Well, thank you very much. I did, I don't look at the socials a whole lot, but I did get a very nice comment that I will share with you guys if I can pull it up here. Out of the blue, I didn't know this person. But I thought it was very nice of them to say. I'm going to get past all the Christmas pictures. Oh, here it is. This is from Barry Bertocchi. I hope I'm saying that right, Barry. And it says, the podcast is great. I've never missed an episode. Been buying the CD with each season and discovering music I had deprived myself of for years. Thank you for that, Scott. That's the whole reason I wanted to do the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got tired of hearing people say, "Oh yeah, I've heard of them. What are their songs?" Or just, "Oh yeah, I've heard of them.
I know who they are, but I can't remember what they did."
Exactly.
That's what I always get, or used to get. Yeah.
And I think so many of their albums just, kind of got lost in time, especially in the 80s, where there was just so much music coming out, and some people didn't get the sound at the time. They didn't like the direction the band took at the time. And I think now that we're away from that, we can look back on it, look at it as something new, and just appreciate it on a new level.
I think what you've done is brought a whole lot of people back to where they forgot that they had been, and they're having a ball reliving this stuff.
That's awesome. Thank you. I have heard a lot of, I forgot about this song, or, I used to listen to this all the time. There's so many things that we can do with our time, so many choices to make: movies, books, video games, different bands, whatever. But, for me, this is one of the bands that I really just want to spend a lot of time with, because out of all these songs, there's only been a couple that I said, not my favorite.
Yeah.
I found something good. And even in those songs, I could say, I really like this one part, or I like this idea. Even if it hasn't been a favorite song. But out of 237 songs, there's only been a handful. That's a pretty good rate for any band.
Yeah, and you probably only have about 137 to go. We're going to get old together.
We are.
Right?
And it's going to be fun. We're going to sit by the fire and go, you remember that time we recorded that one show?
I hope we do get to do that. That'll be great.
That would. Well, David, it's always a joy to have you on the show.
My pleasure.
Come back anytime you want. We've got a few to do.
Thanks for having me again. I wish you all the best for a Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year to you. And
or as they say overseas, Happy Christmas. And best of luck and everything. I'll hook up with you as soon as we can do it. Okay.
Sounds good. And I almost always want to say Happy Christmas, Harry. Now that I've seen Harry Potter too much. In real time, I will say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And in the episode release time, I will say Happy New Year, Dave.
And with Heep, you say Happy Days.
That's right. Happy Days. I can't do it as well as Mick.
All right, man. Take care.
You too, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Okay, Scott. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!